Hi, this is Eric Lofholm. I want to welcome all of you to Speaker Show and Tell, the weekly show where we bring to you guest experts on all things speaking. We've got a great show today. Sabrina, let everybody know, what are we talking about today?
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this topic. We're going to be talking about getting on TEDx Talks. And I don't know about you, but I've always wanted to do a TEDx talk. I just never could figure out how to do it. And so I thought this was kind of interesting. I did a little bit of research and I found out that there's more than 3,000 TEDx talks that are being held annually, and over 50,000 talks have been given in these events since the program launched in 2009. Did you have any idea that that was happening?
I had no idea, and I've done a lot in my speaking career, but I've never been on that stage. So I'm so looking forward to our guests today. I want to learn how to do it.
I know, me too. We've got a couple really great guests, and look at there's some really crazy things. I mean, we've all seen those TED Talks that have been circulating. Do you know that the most popular TEDx talks have been viewed over 1 billion times worldwide?
Wow.
I know, it's so crazy. It's so many it's so many eyeballs on that. And also, TEDx talks are free, obviously, online everywhere. So we've got a couple guests. We have someone who's actually been on a TEDx talk before, and we've got a TEDx coach, and they're going to be giving us tips and ideas and things to do that so that everybody can get on a TEDx talk. So I'm really excited. Our very first guest is Dr. Cheryl Lentz. I've known her for years. She's absolutely amazing. She's known as the academic entrepreneur. She's a 12-time international award-winning and multiple award-winning author. She's a top quoted publishing professional. She's on for ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. And she took the stage on TEDx in 2020 during the COVID pandemic. So it should be very interesting. I'm super excited to have you here. Dr. Cheryl, thank you for being with us.
Hello, everyone from Chicago. I'm thrilled to be here, and this is one of my exciting topics too. So, yay! Thank you.
Very cool. Well, tell us about your TEDx talk. How did you even get on the TEDx talk?
This is a long time in the making. This took me 10 years to take the stage. I am a former military wife. I've moved 38 times and applied in many of the places that have been, specifically Albuquerque as part of their salons, and then Nevada and Las Vegas. And it was something that it takes a bit of while to understand the process. And part of it is the connection of your topic to the theme that TEDx will have. And so I admire everyone's tenacity to know if you keep persistent. But as you had said, there's 3,000 across the stage. And it was very interesting that the one that I finally landed, so to speak, was the largest stage in the country with New York. And I couldn't be pleased, but during COVID made things a little bit interesting.
So, how do you find the themes, and where do you find out how to apply?
Well, I just, looking online, you can find the TEDx and to find out who has the license and who's doing it in your area and what's the theme and what's the process. And you make application, much like you're publishing in a journal of some kind. You're going to give them an idea of your talk and give them a little background. And then they're looking at all the applicants. And there are lots and lots and lots of applicants. So the question is, don't take it personally if you're not selected, just keep trying. And it was very interesting because I have a topic that I do a lot of speaking on, which is known as failure. And it's fail faster, succeed sooner. I even had a book that came out the same time as TEDx, which was Failure Has No Alibi. But it was because of the environment of COVID and the ability to have that talk about forced compliance and what do you do with failure and what do you have to do. And it was just conducive to their process. And so it was really interesting to see how it all worked out, but not exactly what I was expecting. It was pretty interesting to see the process behind the scenes.
What's different about a TEDx talk versus like a regular speech that you would deliver?
TEDx is very unique is that they have a tried and true formula. The sweet spots between 9 and 14 minutes, they advised us here at the New York Port to look at 12 minutes. And that's about, mine came in at about 12 minutes, 40 seconds or something. I have the link on my website to make it easy. But that's part of it. The other thing you have to look at is because of quality control. This is not something, and I know Sabrina and I speak all over the world sometimes, but it's extemporaneous. So we get on a stage and whatever lights us up based on our topic. TED has to be exact. So they're going to have it scripted. They're going to have encouraged memorization so that you can get it as close to what the script that has been approved to make sure that that quality element is there. And for those of us who speak off the cuff, and can speak for hours, so to speak, it's really interesting to stay to that's tried and true script and make sure that it's the same emotion, the same delivery every single time. That was a new skill I had to learn.
I think that would be really hard. I know that I've spoken from PowerPoint, and at least it'll keep you on cue. But just to have it memorized, I think that would be a huge challenge.
Well,
Did
particularly
you?
because you're nervous, right? And it's easier when you're, talking to nobody, but when you get on stage and all of a sudden you're going and then the nerves hit and you have to remember the exact words. And I've stumbled a few over. It's not perfect.
So do they when you're doing TEDx, is it done live or they record it, or how does that work?
Well, this is really interesting what they did for us is because TEDx has the infamous red dot, right? And
What is the
because
red
of
dot?
COVID, pardon me?
What is the red dot? What does that
The
mean?
red dot is their branding, if you will, and that all TEDx happens on stage on the red dot. So it's kind of like on the red
Ah.
carpet. And so, because of COVID, in order for us to have been available at the live event in New York, you would have had to quarantine quite a bit ahead of time and to be able to stay there for 2 weeks. And many of us, it wasn't conducive. So, we had a little bit of an in that there were 3 of us here in Chicago. And so, they built the stage at an opera house for us that matched very closely to the stage in Farbendale. So, when the event was happening live in New York, ours had been pre recorded the week before. And so they just remoted us in like a live TV remote. So it means all of our nerves and stuff were done about 10 days before, and then they went live. So we're watching the event instead of being at the event. That was the only downside for us, is because to be in the TED stage, to be on the ability with your other colleagues, the energy and the after parties and all that kind of stuff would have been cool. But all of that was shifted because of TED. So ours was in Chicago with the 3 of us to an empty audience at the Opera House. And it was a really strange delivery.
That would be strange. I always found like webinars to be very challenging, just because there's no feedback from the audience per se, right?
Exactly.
Like you don't have that I mean, this is easier because we've got an interaction between all of us,
Correct.
but to be live, my goodness, on a stage, I've never done that. I think that would be a new experience for sure.
It
So
was live because of us, and it was just me and the producer, and I did it in the first take, and we had all the camera shots so that New York could, do whatever it is they wanted to do with all the raw footage. And so it was just an interesting experience that probably isn't a normal TEDx experience, but we didn't have the Zoom experience like many TED folks went to because of the quarantine. We had the red dot in a venue, and it's very kind of funny because now when you see my TEDx, it's like, but Cheryl, it sounds like there are all those people there. It's like, yeah, they put in the sounds, but I promise you, it was me and a producer. There was nobody else there, or 2,000 empty seats. So I think I may want to do it again with the live version, because I'd like to have that energy of what it means to be with your entire TEDx team at the day of the event, not to mention to share the stage and have a live audience with you. So maybe another time, I hope.
When
did
you
they
said
did
that you did a one take, does that mean that some of the other speakers, they got started and then like they goofed up? That let's start from the top again.
We had the ability, because our stuff was taped for the other 2 ladies that I was with. They did theirs multiple times, but in an actual live event, we had the advantage because ours had to be recorded in order to make sure there wasn't a hiccup in the live feed. So they recorded ours, and then we did, and they remoted us in as if we were live, and they were told about that. So we had a bit of an advantage, which is why I wanted to simulate that. I wasn't going to get a second shot at the live stage, so I didn't do my take more than once, and it was probably as good as it was going to get, quite frankly, with all the nerves and the moaning, and to realize that you were actually on a TED stage. It was pretty cool. So,
That's cool. Do they edit it then, since you guys were
well, I
recording?
know they edited the shots and the angles because they had very specific requirements that their tech team in New York had to work with the tech team in Chicago to get all the raw feeds so it would match at the day of the event. So how they did all the behind the scenes, I don't know, but we had an awful lot of cameras on us to be able to make sure that whatever it is they needed, since they couldn't retake it, we had one shot at the theater and they just took all that stuff. So I'm sure in the editing bay, whoever their tech was in there, but that's at least gave them cushion that they knew there wasn't going to be problems because it wasn't a live feed from Chicago. And tech can happen, goofy stuff. So ours was in the can in there, and goofy stuff did happen on the New York stage. So it limited a few variables, not the norm, but certainly a way to get nearly the exact TEDx experience as opposed to having to do the Zoom TEDx experience. And so again, one day I'd like to be in the live audience and do it again, but it's a unique experience.
That's neat.
Any advice for a person watching this like me, who's never done one of these talks, it's one of these things missing from my resume. I've got all the other, a lot of the boxes checked, but not this one. So I've never pursued it. So what should I do, or any listener like me? It's like, oh, we want to be like you. What's the kind of the next steps to take?
You need to plan in advance. That's the first thing. Ours was about a 6-month experience. So there was a couple of months to be able to do the application. Then once you were given the go ahead, then another 4 to 6 months for training and all of that stuff. So it's a longer time commitment than I was expecting. So make sure that when you're in it, that you're in it for the long haul, because this is not a 2-week adventure. It's several months depending on who's hosting it. With the 3000 stage, great research. Sabrina, to be able to see there are always options. So you can simply do Google searches and to be able to look at what's your topic, what's your expertise. And mine was a little out of my comfort zone, actually, because they wanted to do the medical aspect of a little bit of what I was talking about failure in terms of where failure lives in the brain. And I told them I'm a PhD kind of doctor, not a MD doctor. So there was a lot of additional research and things I had to do. So part of it is looking at the adaptation. Make your application. It took me 10 years and many different applications to different stages for me to get the nod for someone to be able to resonate with my topic at the right time, at the right place. It's just tenacity and perseverance. And I'm sure that the next speaker you have is going to give you some tips and tricks as a coach of looking at some of those applications. But you need to be able to make sure to follow directions, make sure that your topic is connected with their theme, and then look at what is new, because TEDx, that's their branding, is what is new ideas that spread. You have to have something that's innovative, that's different, that's unique, not something that's simply regurgitated from other things. What's your spin on it? What makes you the refractive thinker is what I call it, is the ability that makes it unique to you and your why. So Sabrina will be very happy about that. But a lot of that is your personality coming in. And that's very important to get that. And it's hard to do in an application. So, but keep working at it, because eventually persistence pays off.
That's awesome. What would you say that were the benefits that came from you from being on TEDx? Like, what kind of awesome things showed up for you afterwards?
Well, part of it is because for whatever reason, I felt the need to have this book that went along with mine. And I am a book publisher. And so I had the book that also released that day. So it gave them the rest of the story, because TEDx is only, again, the sweet spot's about 12 minutes and you can't have everything that's in there. So you have to get the most important stuff. I put the rest in the book. So that gave a lot of my audience the rest of what was talked about my TEDx stuff. And I actually have solved the problem that TEDx had. So I need to do it again to tell them the part 2 version. But the second one was the ability to look at the university. As Eric said, I mean, I'm a college professor, have been for 23 years. I use TEDx in my teaching all the time. And to actually have earned the TEDx stage, that was a big deal for the universities I teach for, because very few academics in my circles had them yet. And so now there's an awful lot of folks that I've inspired who are now getting theirs. And I'm like very excited, because they were like, well, if Cheryl can do it, anybody can do it. I was like, exactly. As a matter of fact, the stage we had some of the younger ones. It doesn't matter with age. I didn't find out about TEDx till I became a college prof and started using it. But some of these kids are young and 10 years old. So age is not a factor, whether young or old. It's really your experience, your vibrancy, that personality that comes through that's going to get everybody going, yeah, I want to understand what she has, because again, ideas that spread around the world and change can happen, but it's really about impact. So the universities loved that I had the ability to now add this to my resume. And I'll tell you, I think it makes it a little bit of celebrity with my students, because I will often put that in my bio and say, okay, it's not just the TEDx, but now your faculty is one of that elite group. And that kind of elevates my price of poker, so to speak.
That's awesome. And you have a little free gift for our audience today. What is it?
I
I'm
do,
excited
because
about
I
it.
put the ebook, or the book that came along with it. Email me and I would be happy to send you. I'm trying to get the zero. It's called Failure Has No Alibi. This is from Napoleon Hill is the title that I'm going, because I love Napoleon Hill's work. Send me an email. I'll be happy to send you the ebook copy. You can get the print version on Amazon everywhere you go. But it's really interesting to hear my story. And I guarantee you, I'm nothing special. If I can do this, you can do this. And the world has opened up, because I'll give you a little teaser. My TEDx has a problem that happened when I was 30 years ago. And only this past Valentine's Day, not this year, last year, I was able to solve that 30-year problem. And so I hope my next TEDx will be able to say, so what have you done since? And the point is, how many people get a chance to impact failure and get a little bit of a do-over sometimes? And I think it's amazing that I've had that opportunity. So when you see some of the books, there's a cliffhanger in here. I now have the answer to that cliffhanger. So call me, I'll tell you the secret.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I can't wait to learn more from you. And we just love your experience, and congratulations on being a TEDx speaker.
Thank you. And if there's any help that I can provide to some of your folks, sometimes you just need an encouragement. Keep going. Again, it took me 10 years to get the stage. So thanks for the opportunity, and good luck, everybody. You can do this. You got this.
Thanks for joining us.
Well, I love that, Eric. Don't you? I mean, I feel like I feel like I had a lot of insight. I didn't realize that it took her 10 years to get to the TEDx stage. That was pretty intense.
Yeah, I have a victory to share, Sabrina. I don't know if you saw this or not, but I got my first book on Audible. And so,
What?
yeah, that happened in the last week, and I got to, check mark that one off the speaker bucket list, if you will. But I'm inspired from our first speaker, and I'm going to get even more inspired with our next speaker. I haven't gotten on that TEDx stage, and so I want to go find out the application process. And I just love what she shared, and just her, role modeling for us. She can do it, we can do it. So I love the message.
It's interesting. I've seen TEDx talks, and it seems like they're always one off, but I didn't realize there was a whole theme to them where there's a bunch of speakers speaking. And so that was kind of an insight for me. It seems like when you go to YouTube or even like Google them, it's like you're seeing one talk at a time, but to see it in a theme, I was like, whoa, that's something new. I did not know that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we have another amazing guest, and we're now going to be joined by Jess Sato, and she is a TEDx speaker coach. Over the last 4 years, she served as the speaker director for TEDx Franklin, a speaker coach for TEDx Breckenridge, and through her work has helped over 20 thought leaders step onto the stage with confidence, clarity around their big idea, and a commitment to change the world. So, Jess, welcome to the show.
Hey there, everyone. How are you?
Good. So nice to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, this is fantastic. We have the expert, somebody who's coached a number of people like me. I'm in kindergarten on this because I haven't gotten on that stage. I don't even know what to do. So give us some wisdom, guide us. What should us speakers do? Help us know what to do next.
So it was really interesting listening to Dr. Cheryl's experience, because every TEDx is completely unique. So her experience is similar but different than my experience with TEDx Breckenridge and TEDx Franklin and other TEDx's. And I think that's the key, right? When you go into this process, there will be a lot of similarities, but there will be many, many things that are different. And that's because TEDx is an independently organized event, right? So, I think it's important for people to understand, like, there's Big TED, right? Where, we think of like sort of like these big celebrity speakers. That's the Big TED stage. It's still open to others, but it's difficult to get there unless you've had some previous experience. But TEDx is significantly more accessible to the average person. And that's because there was this recognition that not everybody could be on the TED stage. There just was simply not enough space to do it, which is why, in 2009, like you said, Sabrina, they started these TEDx events. The challenge with TEDx is that they're all unique. So what's required for one is not always what's required for the next one or the next one down the road. And so I think, Dr. Cheryl said it best, really, really pay close attention to what those applications are asking for. And, the heart and soul of TED, and I think the thing that will literally make or break whether you get accepted is the big idea. Right? That's the heart and soul of what TED is about. So, most people will come in and their idea will be big and bold and audacious, but it's not clear. It's not concise. There's nothing anchoring it. And so it doesn't translate very well to the stage, right? You get a max of 18 minutes. So if your idea isn't well thought out, if it's not well formulated, if it's not well structured or concise, it's going to be very difficult to articulate that with any level of specificity or authority. And so most people struggle to really hone in on what is the actual big idea. TEDx is not about stories, right? Stories amplify the big idea. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of people will say, oh, I have this really amazing story. I really want to tell it. Well, that's fine, except there has to be something beneath it. It's not just an opportunity for you to, get up there and do an inspirational talk, or, like I said, share your story. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't recognize, and is a big component to separating the different kinds of stages that people might land on, right? A lot of people do keynote speaking. I know you guys do. I do that as well. And they tend to have a, heavy emphasis on inspiration and motivation, and people are walking away like really fired up. And TED is going to leave you inspired in theory, but more than anything, it's going to make you question. It's going to change the narrative, really make you think about something differently. And the only way to do that is if the heart and soul of the talk is really clear, and that's where the big idea lies.
And so how do people figure out their big idea?
Great question.
We all have big ideas, but like, how do you actually figure out like, no, that's it. That's the right big idea for TEDx.
Yeah, I would say, so let me just say this is a process, right? So very rarely does a person like go to bed and wake up and the next morning it's like, boom, big ideas right there, complete, concise, and beautiful, right? So the way I like to kind of frame this is, if you sort of think about like a Venn diagram, for example, 3 intersecting circles. The first part is, what is this unmet need? What's a thing that's happening in the world that you happen to be passionate about, that people, maybe you have an alternative perspective on, or that, for example, if in your industry, people are talking about something one particular way and you're like, no, I don't agree with that. We're looking at the difference. So it's like taking a core thought that you might have and creating some separation from the norm, making people kind of tilt their head and be like, oh, I've never thought about it like that. So that's bucket number one, sort of like, what is that unmet need, that thing that, really makes you put a big question mark on a topic that maybe you had never considered. Then I look at what's your domain of authority or your area of expertise. And there is sort of a misconception that you have to have a bunch of professional credentialing. You have to be, an academic in order to do this. And that's just
what I
not
wanted
true.
to know. It just seems like everyone comes with these big, grandiose backgrounds, and that's not the case then.
It's not the case. I mean, a lot of people do, because they have built up their thought leadership, and this process does take a while. But, lived experience does give you a unique perspective in a way that, an academic, for example, or a professional may not have, right? There's research-based information and then there's lived experience, and these two can go hand in hand. And so sometimes, it's enough to just come with your own lived experience and then backing it up with like data and research and other things. And so what, that unmet need, that domain of expertise. And then I love this because I felt like Dr. Cheryl was exemplifying this wholeheartedly, which was this deep sense of passion. And passion will take you a long, long way on the TED stage. Partly because people want to lean into, and often do lean into, people who are excited to talk about the thing that they're passionate about, right? It's like just naturally that energy draws you in.
Right?
Totally. Totally. So when you bring all these pieces together, that's where you start to see this little sweet spot start to emerge. And for example, when I'm working with clients, a big part of our work is getting to the big idea. So people will come, they'll have a notional thought about something that they want to talk about. Maybe there is that like little juxtaposition that they're trying to compare two ideas that maybe don't seemingly go together. And my work is really getting them to keep talking, asking lots of questions and digging until we realize, oh, this is it. This is the thing. And so it is a process. It's not something that just.
Can you give an example of that, of one of the thought leaders that you helped get on stage? Like they came to you and here's where they were, and then this is how you did it, and then this is the stage that they got on. Could you kind of just walk us through that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I had, there was a young woman who came from China, and her whole experience was, really the journey to get from this very rural village in China to the United States. She had this big dream. She taught herself English, and she came and she, like I said, she wanted to share that story because her story in itself is deeply motivational, has tons of lessons learned. And the more we got into it, she started out with, how, perseverance and things like that can really change, can change your life. And I thought, well, that's nice, but it's really not going to get you on the TED stage. I mean, just in all candor, that kind of message is overdone. And unless it's anchored in something. And the more we talked and dug in, the more she kept saying, yeah, people kept telling me it was a lost cause. If you looked at the data, and I thought, what does the data say? And so we dug into the data, and what she ultimately walked out with was how ignoring the data changed her life. And so this was like sort of counter to, when we are trying to make big decisions in our life, a lot of times, what do? We go to the data. What does the data tell us? And that's what shapes our decision. And in her case, it was like ignoring the data, right, is what changed her life. And so that's a great example of how, like, you're flipping
she went against the norm. Yeah, it broke the mold.
Yeah.
I mean, like they say, if you want to be a leader, just blaze the trail and other people follow you. So what a perfect story for that. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, so how did it seems like you kind of have this ability to just kind of see through and like know exactly what TEDx is. That coming from your experience working as the speaker coach for the different TEDx pieces, or how does how does your experience play in?
Yeah, so this is such a funny, I came to TEDx by accident, first of all. I have been a longtime speaker myself, coach, working in, all kinds of fields, and never really focused on speaker coaching. And a colleague of mine, I'm here in Colorado Springs, she said, hey, we're looking for speaker coaches in Breckenridge. What are your thoughts? And I thought, I've never done a TED Talk. And quite honestly, it's not a good platform for me. I'm more of like a trainer-minded kind of speaker as opposed to like a speaker like this. And I thought, I don't know. I don't know. And she said, why don't you just give it a go? And so I did this massive deep dive into TED. I can't even tell you how many TED Talks. I read through tons and tons of stuff on how you really craft a TED Talk well, looked at the resources on the TED website, which are great, by the way. And then I just started working with speakers, and my first 3 speakers were really fantastic. And in some ways we were sort of learning it together, but I was just a couple of steps ahead. And through that process of, my own learning and then working with speakers, continuing to watch other coaches working with speakers, that's where I realized, the heart and soul really is about the big idea. I mean, that seems obvious on the surface, but you can really tell the difference between a well-crafted big idea and the talk that goes with that, and versus a talk that the big idea is a little bit too loose. And you can't quite go on the journey that the speaker really wants you to take because it's just not refined enough. And so for me, now I can sit down with a speaker and really listen. And I have, come up with a whole handful of questions that I use as a way to guide people through this process. And like I said, it's a journey. So we're constantly peeling back the layers, trying to get to the heart and soul of what that message is really meant to be. And, one of those questions, for example, is, what do you really want to say? Right? Beneath the surface, there's something that you really want to talk about. You really want to say something about a particular topic. But there's sometimes fear, uncertainty, some questions about imposter syndrome, like, who am I to even be talking about this? That if we just put it out there and acknowledge that this is the thing that you really want to say, that's where the magic starts to come to life.
That's really neat. That's like, that makes a lot of sense. Just it takes it to a different level. I mean, I know, Eric, you I don't know about you, but like right now my brain's like trying to figure out, how do I apply my information into a TEDx? And I can see where your expertise would be very valuable, Jessica, because, just sometimes we don't know, we can't see it. We don't know what we just know our stuff. Like, we just happen to be excited and motivated about our stuff. But to get to that big idea, sometimes I definitely, I know that I've hired coaches throughout my entire life, and I always had a breakthrough every single time. Even not great coaches, no offense, but just wasn't great for me at the time, right? But still, I got something from it. I still walked away with something that was different and a breakthrough. which is really, really helpful. So how do you get through the application process of TEDx? Because it just, I mean, after listening to Dr. Cheryl, I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like a terrible thing.
Yeah. So I would say her experience is pretty common. Maybe it doesn't take 10 years. I mean, everybody's experience is a little bit different, but I can tell you the one thing that will help you is if you do the work to get clear on your big idea. So, if you look at the application for almost every TEDx event, I probably can say 100%. Every event requires you to put some kind of statement about, what is your big idea? And the more clear, the clearer, the more concise you can be, the better off it's gonna go through. And when I say clear and concise, I mean clear and concise, because sometimes you're literally dealing with a sentence. Sometimes those are limited to the number of characters, the number of words that can even be included. So the more you can distill that work down into something that really is cohesive and makes sense, the better. So that's the first thing, really, really making sure that your idea is solid and sound. And I would say the second thing is making sure that it's tied to the theme. So Dr. Cheryl alluded to this, and the theme is really important. And I want to highlight something that I think we've sort of touched on, but if you have never been to a TEDx event, you will not really get, right? Because when you look at a TED Talk, or when you're watching a single event, you're watching a single talk, and at an event, there's an entire narrative that gets played out. There is a whole storyline that is part of that theme that the event organizer and the curator of the event is really trying to bring to life. And so as people are applying to those events, they're really looking at what is the story arc going to be based on the talks that have been submitted. So, you may have the most perfect talk for this particular location, for this particular thing, but it may not fit the story arc that is coming through with all the other talks. And that's why I think this process can be a little frustrating, because you're like, well, I feel like I've checked all the boxes, but it's not going. And that is in large part based on big idea clarity, and does it match the theme in a way that fits the narrative. So I think the more you can do to make sure that you have really been clear about how your big idea fits this particular theme, number one, and number two, how you are connected to that local area, the better off you'll be. And when I say connected to that local area, right, when we say TEDx, the X indicates like regional. It is meant to be local. And so you'll see an emphasis on almost every TEDx event of local speakers first and foremost. And, something on the order of like 20 or so % will be coming from other places. So tying your big idea to the theme of that event, making sure that you can articulate why this area is relevant to you and your big idea, or what your tie to it is. And then really being able to articulate what makes you unique and uniquely qualified to talk about this. Those are going to be the bread and butter of a really good application.
Well, this has been absolutely fantastic, Jess. I love what you shared, and I have an idea offline I want to explore with you, because I have, I've been speaking for 20 plus years, but the level of depth of the idea that you're talking about is like, it was kind of just apparent to me, like this could go deeper. Like, I love the story you shared about the woman and the odds. I look at my life, I resonate with that, because if the odds are stacked against me and I've got a 1% chance, I'm like, I'm that 1%,
Yeah.
And sometimes, of course, I don't get it to the finish line, but sometimes I do, because of that philosophy. And to your point, I mean, a lot of people are going, well, the data says it's not going to work, so pivot. So I loved how you got there. And so, I want to connect with you offline and hear.
Yeah, please do.
Because, I think that you could take some of my concepts, whether it's for a TED Talk or not, just making me more effective at landing those points. Do you have a next step for people that they can take if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I have a free guide. I think, Sabrina, you have that people are welcome to grab. It's just at my website, jessicasato.com/TEDx. And this is going to take what I've just talked about here and go deeper. So I dive into how do you come up with that big idea? We dig into the application process and some things to be thinking about specifically. And then what do you do once you get selected? Dr. Cheryl mentioned like this process is sort of lengthy. 6 months is about average once you've been selected, to prep time. And one thing that most people probably don't know is that once you've been selected, you are given a speaker coach. So almost every TEDx event has a series of speaker coaches who provide speaker coaching for the speakers that have been selected for that event. And so some of it is just having that recognition that you're not in it alone. I'll say the best TEDx events are very speaker focused, right? I've been a part of some where it was about the curation of the event, and I find that they lack heart. And the events, like for example, in Breckenridge, we take a lot of care to make sure that the speaker is front and center. We want it to be about their big idea, their message, right? Because at the end of the day, they have to be the one on the stage giving that talk. And so, part of it is knowing what to expect once you get that TEDx, once you land that stage. And then the other thing I wanted to address just very briefly is there is a degree of memorization, but I can tell you from experience, the best, and you can actually, if you watch TED Talks a lot, you can see the difference between a fully memorized talk, which I don't advocate for, and an embodied talk. And what do I mean by that? An embodied talk is one where you really know your message by heart. So there's, like I said, this element of memorization. You know the flow of the talk, you know the facts and data, et cetera. So it's there. But when you're on the stage, you know your message. It's your message. It's your big idea, right? And so there's a very delicate balance between full-on scripted memorization. And yes, you usually do have to submit your talk draft, but you're not being held word to word to it. And the best talks are always the ones that are embodied, where the heart and soul of the message is coming alive on the stage, not coming from up here in your head, but from the heart. And so I think just having little bits and pieces to, give you some clues about what's coming, that's what you can expect in that guide.
That's great. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to go download that guide.
Can you put it back
Yeah.
up on the bottom third there?
Yeah, let me put that back up there.
So if you're watching this right now, we're going to put the website up there. I already downloaded it. It's right there.
Great.
You don't mess around. I love that.
I found you on LinkedIn, so you got a LinkedIn connection from me. Please accept it. I found you on Facebook. So I'm reaching out to you every way I can. And so go get that great guide that she has for free. That's going to really help all of you. And man, I'm so impressed with what you shared. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was really good, Jessica. I just know that everyone who's ever wanted to have that TEDx behind their name, I mean, what a valuable resource you are to them. And thank you so much for offering that free guide. That's huge. I love your background. My goodness, I'm so grateful for to be connected to you, because to have that insight, I always say you always need that inside coach and someone who understands from what they're actually looking for. It's I always thought meeting planners were so powerful to me when I was doing speaking engagements, because they could be the inside coach. I really wanted to speak on T. Harv Ecker's stage, his peak performance. And I had an inside coach. I mean, really, I had someone that I'd made a relationship with and just kept asking and asking. I'm very persistent. I think you guys I know Eric knows that, but I'm extremely persistent. And so I just was not going to take no for an answer. And I got rejected. I mean, sorry, they picked Jay Abraham over me one time. And I'm like, yeah, I can't compete with Jay Abraham because I adore him. And he's I've hired him as a coach before. So, but I love this I love the persistence of Dr. Cheryl. She's also very persistent. I love this strategic approach of coming with the big idea. So just a really amazing show today. I'm so grateful for our guests. I mean, you guys are really phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we hope to see you back again, because I know I've got a lot more questions, and I want to keep our time down though. But thank you so much for being here Jessica, and we'll definitely talk with you on the flip side.
Sounds great. Thanks so
Okay.
much for having me, you guys.
It's great to have you. And I think, Jessica, there's other topics that you could speak on as well. Today, of course, was the TEDx, but you're just a wealth of knowledge. And so, we definitely want to have you back at a future show.
Happy to do it anytime.
Man, Eric, I'm loving these. I feel like we're getting our education and I'm just having a ball doing it. How about you?
Here's what I loved. I mean, I've been speaking for over 20 years and I'm learning from our guests, like, wow. And that's what's great about the show for all of our listeners. Every week, Sabrina and the team, they're lining up these great guests and we get a chance to learn from them. And man, what a value add for the speaker community for us to have this show available and to give a platform to these amazing speakers. She just blew me away with kind of going deeper on the idea, because like, wow, what if I actually did that in my speeches, putting TEDx to the side, just having really hitting home with the content. I loved it.
I did too. And now it's like, I want to go back and watch a TED Talk just to like see see their big idea, what it is. Cause I think that's like really neat too. I thought it was amazing that, she was talking about how many TED Talks she, before she went to go work at Breckenridge, how many TED Talks she was like looking at over and over and over again. And I thought that was actually a great advice. I think anyone wanting to get on TEDx, it's great to go look at the ones, especially the ones that are like getting these billion, viewers. I mean, that's a lot of people. So I'd like to know what those big thoughts are as well. I think their big idea would be interesting to see. I know there's a couple that I loved it. She talked about the 5-second rule and I can't think of her name right now. I have her book too. Who is it?
Mel Robbins.
Yes, Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
I remember watching her TEDx years ago. I mean, years ago. And the 5-second rules really got me into working out again, which, is just the whole concept of setting your alarm 30 minutes earlier and getting up and to get yourself, not hit the snooze alarm and say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and get out, But so these TEDx talks are amazing. So I'm really excited and I can't wait to see you on the stage. I think that would be amazing. To have you on there. I of course adore you and would love to see you on every stage there is. So
I want to say one more thing to our listeners. Sabrina and I have come together and we partnered to do this show, and it just, what's awesome about it is it enriches my life, Sabrina, to have you in my life at this level. I'm learning from you. I love the collaboration, and I share that to acknowledge you and also to encourage all of our listeners. Find your speaker partners, find your people that you can collaborate with, do a show with somebody, build relationship, because it just makes your life so much richer. And Sabrina brings a whole different set to my life. And it's been so great to do the show with you.
Well, I'm very honored to do it with you. Eric and I have been connected, for all those of you that don't know, we've been connected for over 20 years, and literally I've hired him as my coach a couple of times. I don't even remember how many times now, but definitely my go-to guy when I need some help, whether it be just taking my business to another level or speaking better on the stage. I mean, that definitely, I never spoke from PowerPoint before. And all of a sudden I was required to speak from PowerPoint. So I thought, and man, you just made a huge difference for me. So I know a lot of people, I imagine a lot of speakers are out there. You probably have lots of things that you want to do in your business and you got lots of questions, and we want to hear them because we want to bring these amazing guests on so that we can answer the questions. All of our topics are coming from our audience that are telling us, hey, we want to do this in our speaking career. We want to, be on TEDx. We want to be a 7-figure speaker or whatever. I didn't say that very well, but anyway, if you have ideas that you'd like to share with us, please go to our website. You can also request to be a guest and get involved, but we'd also like to hear any ideas that you might have for the show, and you can do that by clicking on the audience member. So just click on get involved, and then there's 4 choices. And then if you click on being an audience member, you can let us know what kind of topics you'd like for the show. Or if you feel like you have a really great topic, we want you on the show. So please share that with us. Also, we'd love for you to share our show too with other people. We know that a lot of people can, just benefit from this. I mean, I know that we have a lot of speakers that would love to. So let me just share a couple little things with you. If you want to be a guest or panelist, again, you just go to Speaker Show and Tell. And you can do that. If you would like to share this on social media, please just use the hashtag Speaker Show and Tell. It's all spelled out. There's no abbreviations. And we'd love for you to share the show with other people so that we can help them in their speaking career. Any other thoughts that you want to share today, Eric?
Well, I just want to encourage all of you speakers, just keep showing up and keep listening, because you never know when I didn't know, until I found out we had the TEDx topic, that I was going to get inspired to go in that direction. I've had it in the back of my mind, but I've never had it as a goal in front of me. And so you just never know when you come here. Maybe one week you're going to be inspired to write a book or create a course or to fill in the blank, whatever it is that you're up to. So just keep showing up. We're going to keep bringing you great guests to help you get your message out to the world so you can answer your calling. You've likely been called to speak. And so we want to be there to support you in that calling.
I love it. I love it. Well, I can't wait until our next show. I'm so excited. And we're going to be talking about a lot of great topics. We've got some really fun things in store. So please check on our website and look and see if there's any shows that you, or all of them, you want to be get involved. And then also please check out our website. We have a VIP membership where we offer all kinds of really super great cheat sheets. We have scripts. We have just simple things that our guests have shared with us that we now have in our site. If you want to be a VIP membership, we also have a VIP Pro membership that you can also contribute to. And by the way, you guys, this is like the cost of an expensive coffee. If you go to Starbucks at all or any other coffee place, this is the cost a month of like buying one coffee. We kept it really low. We wanted to get the resources to you. We'd love for you to be part of our community. And if you want the pro, you get your own speaker page, which is very beautifully designed. And we have Eric's up there, and we have several people coming in now that we're designing their pages for them. So I'm really excited about that. So make sure you go to speakershowandtell.com, check out our VIP membership, check out all the information that will help you as a speaker. So we really appreciate you guys tuning in. All right, Eric. Well, I think that does it for this show. I'm excited.
That was fantastic. Great show today.